Yeah, anything to listen in. I love it. Look at that. You look like you're going to do a Mach 10 with your hair on fire for the showings too. I like it. Okay. That's see, I finally got the best of you, didn't I? Yeah, good. Yeah, appreciate the effort. Well, yeah, well, this is, for you and for everybody else, just an intro. Welcome tonight. This is a special course that we started doing for anybody and everybody that wants to tune in. It's a giveaway, but I do have, Medrick and I are in a coaching relationship here too. So I want to make it very clear to everybody that drops in on this. This is the framework within which I run my own personal book of business. I run my brokerage and I coach all of our top producers like Medrick, who's up in the greater Montreal, Quebec area. I can't emphasize enough how this is important because it is actually the bone structure that helped me get strategic and improve my business over time. I've been doing it for 25 years. I've been teaching it for 18, but yet I marvel at how different my own book of business is over the last 36 months. I think that's the point that really I have to emphasize. And so when I do this course here, it is truly the bones or the framework of how I do what I do. Now, of course, in a course like this, I might give away some tactical information and show you how I do it. But the purpose of it is to try to help you develop a strategic brain and a strategic thinking, which I didn't have for a long time. Like a lot of you, the first reaction that you have when you're trying to do something is you get very tactical, right? You say, okay, where are the leads? What do I say? How do I do it? And we get very tactical very quickly. And that becomes a problem. And in the coaching program where I have all my elite mastermind members, they're all top producers that come to me that can sell and they can sell the lights out, but life becomes very chaotic and there's no bone structure and there's no management framework. So you might listen to that and say, okay, well, this is for top producers. I'm in the wrong spot. You'd be exactly wrong because we have all sorts of Griffin agents in my partnership in Seattle with one of my coaching clients, in Arizona, here in Massachusetts. When a brand new agent comes to us, it's the same bone structure that we give them as we would give a top producer to get their business under control. So I can't emphasize enough that when I go through these 12 weeks in this course, this is actually what helps me keep structured. And if you talk to Laura, who's been with me for 17, 18 years as my client care manager, she and I will both tell you that when we cheat our systems, and there are a lot of them. Globally, there's one, but then microeconomically, there's one. We always run everything. When you hear systems, just think something as simple as a checklist. So this course here is a checklist of what to do to get your business under control. And I don't put anything in here that's fluff. I have nothing to sell you. This is a freebie. We give it away. We do have a lot of our own agents that come here for training and they're new. And so they want that training. So yes, we might have some of our people that are our inner circle, but again, it's a give back, but more importantly for me, it's a reiteration. Am I still following my system? And what do I need to do to organize that even more? So as I go through this course every 12 weeks, I tweak it ever so slightly, but I don't really have to throw the baby out with the bathwater because I put the big rocks in the jar. So when I give you a subject tonight, it's going to seem like, oh, this is just some rah-rah, Tony Robbins classroom about self-image and mindset. And I just can't say enough and how important it is that if you don't see yourself correctly as a profitable real estate agent who is easily maneuvering into getting listings at or above the median price in the geography within which you prepare you really want to do business, then you miss this really great starting point. And I can tell you that everything I teach is based on a mistake that I once made and then made that adjustment and then proved to myself before I would ever preach it that it was a better and profitable direction for me. So the first piece of this, we start off, and by the way, just to give a little introduction here, let me just show you the agenda for the course so you understand how this plays out, because you might not be able to come here every week, but I am recording these now to my YouTube channel. So the Realty Classroom YouTube channel, this is where they go. And Facebook screwed me up because I was smoothly putting them into, into the group. Then all of a sudden they made that difficult. Now it's just too much technology when I run these things. So I just put it up to YouTube. It's the easiest place. So if you want the recording, when I go through this, that's where you'll see it. Okay. So I'm going to show 2 screens. If you're on the inside with me, and you are already in the Zoom, awesome. You're in the best place to be with me, and you can come in here each week. But if you are not in the Zoom, you can go watch this stuff on YouTube, like I said. So let me grab, now I have to show it in both places. Okay, so here's the agenda for the 12 weeks. And I'll give it to you tonight. You see how it ties in. So you're not just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to listen to head stuff. I was hoping to come learn something about lead generation. I was hoping to learn something about listing acquisition. You can ask me whatever you want. I'll guarantee you free coaching at the end of every lecture every week. You have a question that goes off into one of these other subjects, or you're stuck in your real estate business. It is free game to have me. And I have plenty of very clear pieces of advice and opinions on everything to do with this business. So you can write down your questions that are stimulated by each week, or come in each week just for some free coaching advice. Okay. But the reason I called the course The Profitable Real Estate Agent is because at its very crux, if you don't think about each sale as a profit center, what happens is you run away chasing business just because you think it's a live wire and you just need that check. And I can remember when I first got started in my own business, I remember saying, well, I'm going to do all of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And that's kind of an absurdity, because by the time I can get all the way out to Provincetown or all the way down to Woods Hole in Falmouth, it's just as short a distance to go straight to Boston from the Mid-Cape. So it just doesn't make any sense strategically. And that was the big mistake I made, because I had 2 little kids at home when I got started. I needed to make this work. So if you breathe the words real estate together, my plan was to stick a business card in your hand and just follow up ad nauseum until you did business with me. And to a large extent, that works. If you run a business on muscle to a certain extent, you will find enough people that have to do something and it will work. But it's not a business. It's almost more like a hobby, or worse, an addiction, because most top producers that come to me for help are already very much addicted to just trying to get the next deal. So if somebody breathes real estate, they're on them. And that requires you to show up to your business every week and really just go at it with energy. No strategy, just tactical energy to try to identify somebody, skim that cream off the top, sell a property, buyer, seller, you don't care. Geography, you don't care. Price range, worst of all, you don't care. You just do it. So when we get into the mindset stuff, it's not a rah-rah thing. These are practical tools that I learned through books for myself over time when I was really, much younger and very much into self-improvement. I was looking for mindset tools, and I came across a couple of great books, which I'll get into tonight. But as it applies to the profitable real estate agent, I want to define for you a new vision, right? And that new vision is the most successful real estate agents are listing agents. I want you all to go after listings from day one, today, not someday, right? I want you to go after them. It's the biggest mistake I made in my career. It's the biggest mistake I made maybe even as a younger coach, much longer, many years ago, where I would say, listen, let's talk about the buy side too. I'll get to the buy side in this course, but I'm telling you, Michael Gerber poses a great question in his book, The Entrepreneurial Myth. How does the business really work? And it is predicated on listings being entered into the MLS, which is our digital marketplace, right? If that doesn't exist, then the business doesn't exist. So if that's the way the core of the business exists, then we need to teach everybody that will listen that you need to learn how to be one of those people that gets and acquires those listings and controls that outcome. Especially as we start this next round of the profitable agent, you are fully aware of the pressures that there are on the buy side commission. And you're going to see the margin on the buy side get squeezed through whatever mechanism there will be the ability to offer compensation. And there will be. And I have 2 MLSs. They're completely different. One is private. It is still allowing for a variety of ways to offer compensation. It is just simply said it is not mandatory, but you have the choices. So they took care of the issue themselves. Others that are affiliated with NAR, it's gone because they got hammered so hard that they can't even come up and fathom with a way to do it like these private MLSs. So it's going to throw us into a discombobulated place on the buy side. Yes, on the sell side, we'll have to explain it a little bit, but I deal with all of that by strategically teaching you how I do exactly this. I have these conversations every week. I have quick answers for people that are based in logic and the truth about how the business works. As a quick little tip, the way that the business really works is that about 88% of the time, no matter what the MLS, no matter what the size of a company, it's one broker to another broker from two different brokerages. 88% of the time or so, the last time I checked in my world, okay? So if that's the case and you're not offering compensation to those people, you eliminated 88% of the ease of access and understanding for that agent. Huge mistake. Massive mistake. And if you keep squeezing it down, your dumb agent is putting less bait in the water to attract that 88%. They hurt you. Okay. So you can see, if you think strategically about a business because you understand how it works, the way that you can discuss this with the consumer becomes so much less burdened and it's so much clearer. And I think that's the most important part of that. So that's all mindset stuff too, because if you don't believe that for yourself and you say, well, you can say it because you're a coach. Well, if you're coming into this round of 12 lessons for the first time, I can point behind me where Annabelle sits, and she's 22 years old. She started apprenticing for us when she was 17 years old. She's sold 4 to 5 properties, several of them, including the one she has under agreement, $1.7 million. So it's not someday, it's today if you're strategic, and that's how you study, and that's how you run your business, okay? So we're going to talk about mindset tonight. After that, next week, we set a very clear financial gross commission income goal. We don't try to tell you how to manage an entire business in 1 week. We just simply say, listen, every brain that you've just programmed in week 1 needs a North Star. You need to see where you're headed from a gross commission standpoint for your own book of business. I don't care if you own the brokerage or you're at a brokerage. It's irrelevant. You set a crooked number in the sky, meaning you don't say 100,000, 50,000. You say 102, 357, and the brain begins to go to work on how we're going to get it. Week 3, before you can ever go out and really talk about marketing, because people have a lot of misconceptions about marketing this business. They think marketing is all about lead generation. Lead generation has very little to do with some of the core and fundamental components of marketing. Marketing has a lot to do with the definition of unique selling proposition that says, when you are a profitable agent with a clear goal, you now have to wonder what makes you in your business unique. Now, when you first approach this marketing principle, it's confusing because what happens is you say, but how can I be unique? Everybody does the same thing. Well, it turns out there are some very simple behaviors that you can do by organizing information and productizing it. And it's sitting behind me over here, which I'll pull out in week 3, and I'll go through it. I'll show you what a unique selling proposition physically looks like. It's information that is curated, organized, and productized for sellers primarily and buyers secondarily. But then in the next week, who's that ideal person? You cannot do business with everybody. There are plenty of people that want to sell a home and buy a home every single day. There's never a shortage. The difficulty is that we don't take another basic marketing principle of avatar, marketing avatar. Who's ideal? And we talk about that in week 4, how you define that. It's not everybody, okay? Like I made that mistake. Then we do get into leads. But so many people are so freaked out about leads, and everybody since the mid-2000s run straight to the internet first. I talked to another agent. He's coming in here tomorrow, all frustrated about all these internet leads, all these buyer whimsical inquiries, and all these buyers that he ends up with that can't qualify for something because the perception is the internet is some great purveyor of leads. It's the worst source of leads. The worst. Take it from somebody who has exhausted every way to get the best leads. I'm telling you, whether they're seller or buyer leads, the internet is just filled with the lowest end stuff, not profitable stuff, right? So we talk about that and how to adjust for that. Then we get into a lot of content marketing, because when you're talking about leads and marketing and all that, then it's like, okay, we now still have to go out and we have to market ourselves. But what are we doing to market ourselves? Are we flashing the watch or driving the car that we rented, or we're taking our clothes off online? I mean, it's just stunning to me what people do so desperately to try to get attention as a real estate agent versus marketing the content that they can hitch their wagon to, like a market update once a month that professionalizes you. We talk about all of that. Then we really get into week 7, how we devised scripts that relate to every context where those leads live. So expireds, probates, for sale by owners, whatever. You throw a context at us, we have a formulaic approach that we've developed for scripts, and all of our scripts are based largely on laws of influence in Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. And it's just stunning what a difference that has made. And we are a group internally in the coaching program that listens to recorded calls every single Friday. So we're working for the consumer. I don't have an opinion. I have a system that is devised to serve the consumer at the best and highest level. So we have incredible time efficiencies on the phone and we're effective, right? Talk about that week 7. And then we talk about just in general, when you're prospecting, turning a lead into a prospect who is the ideal client avatar, because they have a real why and they have a motivation. How do you protect them? What kind of information do you continue to send them so that your business is not always the next cream scrape? It has everything to do with your follow-up systems, right? And then when it gets into, your clients, how do you care for the sellers and then the buyers? And then all of that last phase of closing, who's helping you close? Are you fading away during the closing so that right before this person is about to birth themselves into your past client family, that you've kind of let off the gas? Every one of these pieces of this structure set you up to see this service business as an assembly line to produce what we call at my company happy Griffins, because they're likely to repeat and refer, and we treat them like family, and we never stop communicating professionally with them until the time comes where that happens, even if they don't repeat. Okay. So that's the agenda here. And again, like I said, it's what to do in what I believe is a very important order. Okay. And by the way, I live by these systems. If you want to see me hold this thing up here, Michael Gerber's book, The Entrepreneurial Myth, talks about 3 types of personas. I'll get into that a little bit tonight here in this call, but there are 3 types of personas that make a small business person successful. One is that entrepreneurial mindset that has the vision. 2, which is missing in most of our worlds, is the managerial brain. We don't come out of the womb saying, I can't wait to manage the crap out of my business. We come out with the technical brain saying, I got to sell something, right? But we talk about how to put that all together by being strategic first and then tactical second, and having a vision for a business that is profitable based on systems. Okay. So it's all philosophies that have been studied and turned into an actual usable system. Again, I'm not some prophet. I do this every single week with my sales machine team. I have a lot of micro workers now in this modern age that allow me to be time managed. So I can be here with you tonight. I have a listing presentation in my hand tomorrow, right? That we got from this exact same formula we're talking about. And my guess is based on this location that this is assessed at, 1.9 million, right? I have no idea who that person is. We found them systematically. So it's not like it's my influence or my past clients. We generate new business all the time with this same very formula. Okay. All right. Let me get into this week. We are going to talk about this. Let me just make sure. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm showing the right stuff here. Bear with me. Yep. There we go. That's that one. And okay. So in the Zoom, just tell me if you can see week 1. Do you see a slideshow? Somebody want to open their mic and tell me that? Good. Okay, bravo. Away we go. All right. So how to become empowered even before you start. And again, if I don't slow this down, then you'll all just rush off into the tactical, and that's the whole point. So how do you become empowered before you even start? Has everything to do with that mindset. Okay. And so self-image development starts with this concept of the theater of the mind. Now, I will highly recommend a book right off the bat. If you have never read Maxwell Maltz's Psycho Cybernetics, which sounds like a, kind of a scary title, really what that means, translated loosely, is mind steering system. Cybernetics is a steering system. And I think that's really significant that you understand that book had a major influence on my entire life, because it was the first time, instead of a rah-rah self-image or self-development book, there were actually real clear ways on how you could use your mind to develop this direction for your life and your business in this case, right? So that book is a high recommendation. And if you see two versions of it, by the way, the other version is called The New Psycho Cybernetics. My real estate mentor had a marketing mentor, has still to this day, a marketing mentor by the name of Dan Kennedy. If you've never heard of Dan Kennedy, Dan's been a very successful marketer, direct response marketer. He was a platform speaker, but he was highly affected also by that body of work, Psycho Cybernetics, because he actually grew up with a severe stutter. And so he used those techniques to overcome a stutter to become this unbelievably effective platform speaker, if you can imagine that. And then when I say platform speaker, I'm talking, he's been up on stage with Norman Schwarzkopf. They used to have those big success tours that they would fill arenas. I remember going to one in the Boston Garden before it was the Fleet Center. I mean, amazing that somebody could overcome a stutter. So these are significant people who have affected my thinking in my life, and these are the bodies of work that they used to develop, their overcoming or their success. So it matters. Do the homework, right? The theater of the mind is where you can visualize and create your ideal self-image. Now, in the book, he has a very interesting concept, and again, I think largely in the modern era. And Maltz was a plastic surgeon, by the way, in New York City. He's a Bronx guy. If you ever go online and you look up YouTube videos of Maxwell Maltz, he speaks with, a real city accent. He's kind of a rugged guy, really, really bright guy. And so he grew up as this plastic surgeon, doing all these surgeries on people, fixing them from accidents or just changing them cosmetically. And I just never forget learning about what he did. And he would find that he could do a surgery on somebody, and it would be a dramatically different effect on their life. They would see themselves as completely different. And other people, they would see themselves as the same old ugly person, even though he had transformed their look. And so what he came to realize is that they were actually seeing the world through their self-image, so that no matter what he did to them physically, they were still seeing the world through this self-image. And that's where he really started to want to document this, and ended up writing this book all about it. You see the world the way that you see yourself. So this is why we start off with the head stuff here. If you come into real estate, or you're already in real estate, I'll give you my own example. I saw myself in real estate as the volume guy, right? I was the guy that was going to go up to Route 132 in Hyannis, and I was going to put my sign out there where there were 30,000 car trips back then a day. I think it was even more, right? Way more now. But I was going to just do volume, instead of coming right down to where my office is now in a little village called Osterville, which is about as high end as it gets in the state of Massachusetts. So because I saw myself a certain way and never sat down and said, how does the business work? Why don't I want more profit per deal? Why wouldn't I go after luxury loosely defined as the median price or average price and above? Why didn't I ask myself any of those questions? Because for some reason I had painted a self-image in advance of that as a hustler, right? That's why, as God love Gary, Vaynerchuk and all the great things he did, especially early on the internet. But that message just got overdone. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Yeah, but in what direction? I'm all for working hard and hustling, but what direction are you going to put yourself in that hustle is going to greatly matter. So you have to be very careful about that self-image as a hustler, right? So I think that's what was very interesting to me, is that, wow, if my lens is cloudy, let me give you an example too of a lot of people I coached early on. Oh, I'm never going to do high end people. I mean, there are certain type of people. They're snooty. They're this, they're that. They're not from my ethnic background. I have heard every single reason why people don't see themselves that way, right? Every single reason. And it's all wrong. Because the truth is, as I got into more median and above, then average and above, and now multi-million dollar stuff on the regular, what I found is those people couldn't be any nicer, more so on average, than I ever had in the distress sale level, by far. And so all that silliness that we see ourselves as not being that was wrong. And that's all self-image. So self-image from malts to us becomes a very clear problem that's identified. It's the lens through which you see the world, right? It's the same thing in dating or whatever. I could never date that type of person because I'm this type of person. That's how you cloud your judgment, because you see yourself that way. Good news is, there's something you can do about it. So your self-image can either limit, or in this case tonight, empower you depending on your beliefs and your perceptions. And I just gave you some examples of, and Napoleon Hill talked about this too, by the way. I could use the term inaccurate thinking. So what I gave you as an example is that's inaccurate thinking about the people that own luxury houses. It was inaccurate thinking. Yeah, from time to time, you might find a real jerk that owns a multi-million dollar house, sure, and you might validate what you've been thinking. But on average, it's just a belief that's not backed up by any sort of real evidence to the contrary or to support it until you go and do this, right? So these misperceptions and these misbeliefs, they can really throw you off. But if you begin to, talk about this kind of stuff, well, let's get into how do you change it. So let's presume we start with something that says, I could never be that person, right? Give you a little bit of a digression. How did I get out of this moment in time? I remember saying to myself, business principle wise, if the business is predicated off of listings, what kind of listings am I getting? And when I looked at the average price of the listings I was getting them less than the median price. Now, remember your high school math or whatever, elementary math and distributions, when you had median is the middle number. If you have a whole bunch of sales, it's the one right in the middle, right? And so on Cape Cod, that median number back then was probably had a 4 in it, 426 or something like that. And I was selling largely 317. And I had this moment where I literally turned into the mirror and said, you are a below average realtor in your behavior. Not what you know. I was teaching hundreds of people at the time, but I had to call myself out and say, you are a below average. And again, median's the middle number, not the average. Average skews up a little bit there. But I was just trying to make a comment to myself about the way I was behaving. I had created this persona through this original self-image, and I started to behave only that way. And my result told that story. And that just made me sick to my stomach. I felt embarrassed in that moment in time. And I was able to grab that negative self-image and choke it, right? And just say, it's over today. I remember actually when it happened. One day I was driving home to my neighborhood, and I had, stolen this beautiful house in this great neighborhood during the recession, got a great deal, and multi-million dollar houses on the way in every day. And I saw this house at the beginning of my neighborhood that I knew had expired. And I saw a new sign go up and the guy's name on it, who I knew was nowhere near as knowledgeable as I was about this business. And I said, that's it. I'm done. This will never happen again. It's over. So I took that old persona of the volume guy doing these distress sales and all that, and I killed him. In fact, not only did I kill him, I killed his database too. So a lot of the past clients that we were following up with, a lot of the leads that we had, I literally flushed them. I had an old database. I looked at Laura and Charlene, and at the time, we were moving to another database at that time, Infusionsoft, and I said, nope, don't move any of those over. We're done. We will start this all over again if we have to, going after listings, primarily median price and above, and we're going to make the geography smaller. I just never forget it, right? So to change your self-image, I had to change those habits. I had to change those actions and those thoughts. So those are the very particular things. No longer would I drive by a nice neighborhood and not identify opportunities. Now, of course, I could sit from my desk and identify expireds, in a high-end area. That I didn't have to drive around to do that. It was just the shock of that decision moment. The action step was to stop acquiring internet leads in general that were buy side too, by the way, that were taking all my energy and my resources and I literally built a building that was more so for a buy side business, so that I took the place in the middle. There was a receptionist. You came in, said hello to her. We had 2 meeting rooms. We had our laptops. We gave a buyer presentation, and we just bought buyer leads, and we cranked them out with our inside sales staff that we called them at the time, not even telemarketers. And we just kept doing buyer leads, and we killed it, right? I would run a big display ad in the Cape Cod Times that would attract me listings, and I would go do that. But again, those were begetting more less than average things. So again, I stopped all those things. Those became habits. I stopped them. Those became action steps. I stopped and replaced with new action steps. And my thought really was about the reinvention of not only how I did what I did, but what it looked like. I mean, we went and we changed the whole image. We had this Danny Griffin Real Estate Inc. because I started just as an individual agent, and that was the name of the company. But I literally went in and we created all of these, business cards that literally look like the Batman logo, right? High end. If you felt these cards, they're super thick. I got into the website business. I got so deep up into changing that. So it was a significant self-image change that then translated out into the business change. Like I said, the address, we moved. We created new websites. We created new business cards, new materials, new signs, everything. So the actions were massive. It was just a firm decision that there would be the death of this other image on the type of business we were, and a reinvention. And quite frankly, it was not an easy thing to do, because I had created such a reputation as this volume guy that even luxury agents were like, oh, why don't you refer that to Griffin? He kills it with the entry level stuff. And it just made me sick when I heard this stuff, right? So this is exactly how I use these techniques, because I was aware of them. And I became self-aware of the self-image. So I had to change these things, right? Now, by using the positive affirmations and visualizations, I was able to really this is the trick now in the book, okay? This is the real how-to moment. I was able to reprogram my subconscious mind. Let me explain. When you begin, and we're going to do this, with the financial setting of the goal next week, when you begin to tell your mind something different, you don't really need to know that night, that day, how you're going to do it. And so I think I was talking to Medrick today about that, and I talked to most of my coaching clients about this. What happens oftentimes, if you realize that you've been making some mistakes in your business, or you're stuck, or you don't know what to do, you get this incredibly heavy burden in your mind, right? It's a cognitive burden. And what happens is, even though tonight, for example, I might be speaking simply about simple things to do, you might be feeling anxious by this, because you're like, shit, where do I start? Well, that's your animal brain starting to awaken and saying, uh-oh, this guy's got us burning too many calories. This is going to be too much work. Let's just keep doing this. When the truth is, if you would just act as if you could be this thing. It starts that simply, by the way. Why not me? Why not you? Why can't we be a better, more profitable agent, one listing at or above the median at a time? Why not us? And again, it's because we've never been taught how to program ourselves to slowly but steadily move in that direction. And if you don't begin to program your mind, you don't allow your unbelievably powerful subconscious mind, which taps into the general world of knowledge. It's not just Danny on a webinar some night. It's everything you've ever run into, everything you've ever seen, sometimes even casually. Your mind is so powerful, it's made a data bank of that information and it's stored it, but it has just never had a way to apply it or use it because our image is so strongly against it, we don't call upon it. It's also the trigger for resourcefulness. So sometimes, even if you don't have it in your own data bank, but you start to think, okay, what do I need to do to be resourceful to change my image? Okay, well, I need somebody who can design for me a better logo. Where do I go? Let's try this 99 design thing online. So all of a sudden, the subconscious mind goes to work, stimulating you to think and to take these actions and to be resourceful because the answers are there. I mean, look at the thing I taught my kids young, and I drive them crazy still to this day. And I can Google 10 times better than most people I know because I've been saying, hey, go to Google and Google this. That would drive them crazy in the car. But I became so good at just letting my subconscious say, you need this. So go do this, go search for this and go find this. And I would move off in that direction. And my subconscious mind was always in the background working. I will be specific about what we're going to talk about the math. And why did I say earlier tonight, when you set your gross commission goal, you want that goal to be a crooked number. Here's why. The subconscious mind is really smart. So if you patronize it and you say, oh, I want to do 50,000. It knows you're patronizing it. It knows you're not serious. There's not a seriousness of purpose in that kind of goal writing. Okay. So some great books on the power of goal writing. Brian Tracy's written multiple books that essentially say the same thing over and over and over again. A written goal and ways to achieve it. I always have my little time box thing here. I'm always writing things down and getting it out of my head and onto paper because there's something magical about even short-term goals, daily goals, whatever. But you're conditioning your mind to be the resource that keeps you on track. So if I set a financial North Star or I get specific numbers, so for example, in our coaching program, one of the first things we have people do is a GCI goal tracker. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, here's the median sale price in the geography within which I want to do business. So they'll pick a spot with a minimum of 800 to 1,000 sales. That's 1,600 to 2,000 sides. So they'll pick that. And then they'll go in and find the median and the average price. And then they'll put a target commission that they're after. I can't believe how many of my Canadian clients just put down 2%. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, shoot higher, shoot at least 2.25. It's profit per deal, right? And so they change that. And then they all of a sudden have a target commission. So when they go out and do a deal, they have to put it into the spreadsheet. And the way that we have the math, it says you either beat the target for the median commission and you beat it for the mean, or you're behind. And it changes the number of deals they have to do to get to their goal. And it's a slap in the face, literally, every time you don't meet the goal. So now the subconscious mind goes, well, why do we keep getting these deals below this? What are we doing to be resourceful to go get a better deal that not only hits the target, but maybe exceeds the target, right? Now, I can be specific about this with, how it worked for me. I made a very conscious decision to go after expired listings in the areas within which I wanted to go. And, it took a while to develop the unique selling proposition package, which we talk about in week 3, right? And it turned out to be stupid simple. Then we had to make the scripts. Then I had to train the telemarketer to make those calls. Well, if you looked at Kathy's number, let's talk about when I first did this. The average sale price was $577, which was a big leap from where I was going in the 3s and I was trending towards the 4s, but it was $577. Now, since COVID, it's exploded, but let's just talk about that. I can see that number in my head. Why? I wrote it down. And then the commission that was derived from there. Well, to this date, my telemarketer, Kathy, who's been with me about 2.5 years, the business that she has generated with me has averaged 1.13 million. Okay. 1.13 million is her average sale with me, and a commission of 27 and change. So those are crooked numbers, right? And it was just like that. It all came from this because I had to be resourceful, because every time I looked at one of these lousy deals, I said, all right, we need 577. We need 5. And what happens is it's a strange drift. Because once you start to realize, okay, 577, why can't we get 750? If we get 750, why can't we get 1.5? We get 1.5, why can't we get 3? So I have one listed right now, $13.5 million. I think it's overpriced, but I have it. And then I have one that's $8 million. And I have a fistful of them that are $2.5 to $3.5 million, all because of this thinking. Because the subconscious mind, once it was programmed to keep winning and winning bigger, we didn't make a big deal of it. And the self-image continued to grow that, yeah, this is just what we do. This is who we are, right? And as we go up, there was new challenges. Some of those people, $13 million, got to argue about open houses and how, why would you ever do that? It's such a luxury thing. Well, what he doesn't realize is people are people, and those people with a lot of money are just like anybody. I've sold houses left and right where somebody called me and said, I see a $3.5 million open house. I'll be down in 20 minutes. Do you mind waiting? No problem. Bought the house, right? So all of this came from me programming my mind, reprogramming my mind, and constantly reinforcing it. By doing this course, I reinforce this, right? It's what I continue to do. So the next part of this head stuff conversation is there are other components to why we might have a self-image that we do. And that is oftentimes we've never really taken a personal inventory, right? We might say, I crafted this image of myself as a kid because I, was abused, or this circumstance happened and that negative thing. And so, yes, we have a lot of those experiences that get us there, but we also don't realize that there are some very brilliant people like Dr. William Moulton Marston, who actually developed the lie detector test. He also developed the DISC personality profile. So when I was part of my mentor's program, that was a standard fare that you took the DISC personality profile, and it gave you an inventory of who you were. And in this genius test, which is simple, I think it's like 27 questions where you're describing yourself with certain adjectives, and you come up with a profile. And that profile is you are either dominant, influential, steady, or compliant, right? So those are the types of personalities. Well, when I took it, I was very high I and D, one level right below it. I think it was an 11 and a 10. And the irony was, on the other side of it, I was negative exactly those numbers. So I was negative 10 on the S, and I was negative 11 on the C. Well, that was a mind bender, because when we start to teach all this stuff and you realize you're running a business, you actually have to be a little bit of all of those things to be a successful business person. So you have to understand what you're naturally wired to do. You're going to tend to do those things only and ignore everything else. And that's not a good thing, and it's not okay, right? So you have to take that inventory of yourself to understand, I'm going to have to dial up being steady when I develop my systems. How the hell am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to leave this location, sequester myself in Boston, a private office, and work my butt off for one day a week. I used to call it work on it Wednesdays, right? And I would just lock myself down and be steady and cross T's and dot I's and be compliant by just building my systems one after the next, which was nothing more. Now that I look at it, I could have made that even easier by just saying, as a contact moves along my business, what is it that we do here? Then what do we do there, right? And just made all those micro systems. But that DISC personality profile became very important. Like I said, dominance, influence, steadiness, and consciousness. You can be some of those naturally. And by the way, under stress, you will be the thing that you are most naturally like, okay? Your DISC personality profile can help your natural behavioral and communication tendencies. As we go through this course, understanding also that persona that's naturally there and the one you're trying to develop, where there may or may not be conflicts, I think that's where this, really comes to be. If you're a very high D, you're not going to have a lot of patience for process. Most of my clients that have very high D, it takes me a while to really get them to sit still and understand this is the way out. And most of them, quite frankly, have to go get some help very quickly from somebody who is more steady and conscientious, and they end up being my coaching client as much as anybody. Now, I bought into this so wholeheartedly that I was able to adapt and become these things. But if you looked at my own sales machine team, I am surrounded by S and C ability people who are natural at that kind of stuff, to make sure that I don't drop my details as I tend more towards my natural behavioral styles, right? So understanding your DISC personality profile can help you communicate more effectively with others. Now, this is when I say others, think about the course. We talked about other sellers, right? People across the table from us. Do you recognize that they're not all wired like you are? Do you recognize that? I didn't for a long time, or didn't really think much of it, because I was selling, right? I was selling, I was building rapport, and I wanted them to like me. And once they like me, we can do business. And it was just such a swing and a miss. I just wasn't understanding that. So by understanding it, I could adjust my communication and my interaction style. I think the first time that Laura, who had been with me quite some time before she'd ever gone out to a listing presentation, she kind of looked at me when we got in the car afterwards with a strange face. I said, "What?" She said, "I've never heard you be so quiet my entire life." And I said, "Yeah, you sit 5 feet away from me. Most of the time you're hearing me negotiate something or talk to somebody, or I'm coaching. So my job is to talk in those cases. But in that house, when I'm trying to empower somebody with education, and I'm trying to figure out where they're really at, and how I can help, I have to listen. So I have to adjust that. And furthermore, if I know they're S&C people, I have to quiet down. I have to slow down the speech. I have to point to the places in, the presentation where we're at, ask a little bit slower, any questions on this section, versus getting through it all and having those questions. So you start to learn a lot about not just yourself, but how that is going to affect your communication style with people. And if you're a top producer or one of my team leads in here, how you react and work with the people that work for you, who are going to be different. I can tell you I have 2 telemarketers, and they have very different personality types from each other. And one has one very different from me, and more like Laura's administrative style. I have to be 10 times more patient in that scenario than I would ever have to be with the one that's much more like me, that we just have natural tendencies to move swiftly. However, those 2 get mad at us when we just kind of blow off detail. And that came up today when Laura was talking about Kathy's spreadsheet. She was frustrated that the spreadsheet hadn't been filled out for a couple of weeks, right? So that's how you start to learn how you have to interact and communicate, okay? So by leveraging your strengths and improving your weaknesses, which is exactly what I did as a manager of systems, you can become a more effective team member or team leader in this case, if it's your own business, right? And then, of course, committing to constant improvement. I mean, that's why we do the teaching here. That's why it's just constant and never ending, that I'm trying to improve the microeconomics. For example, tomorrow we have our mastermind call for our coaching members, and we are deep into mind maps, right? I mean, we just go through, I'll show it to you in a second here. Somebody remind me when I stop. I'll show you what a mind map looks like. That's a managed mind map, which is nothing more than a checklist. We obsess over that. It's a constant inventory of how we do what we do. And if we don't keep doing that, our muscle as a manager atrophies, and we're not committed to this constant improvement. This is a philosophy that I really learned called Kaizen. Let me see if I have, yeah. So the Japanese term for constant improvement is called Kaizen. That is the slow, steady, continuous improvement over time. It made Toyota famous, and it's just a Japanese business operational philosophy. It's just constantly and never-endingly trying to get better. The Chinese have it. There's a book called The 100-Year Plan. I think my son was reading at one point in time. It's just this constant improvement of their society and how they do things over time. Of course, like anybody, they run into problems. By focusing on continuous improvement, you can make small, incremental changes that add up over time. I will tell you, and I'm really sincere when I say this, I have to pinch myself sometime when I look at the listings we have, because it wasn't that long ago that wasn't there. And we just keep making these small improvements, and all of a sudden, like, they're adding up and they're compounding, right? So the key to constant improvement is to establish a culture of commitment and accountability. And that's what I do with my coaching members. It's like, and that's why you saw Medrick in here tonight. It's because it's like, dude, you have to commit to working on your business. Nobody's coming for you. And if you don't, what happens is the anxiety gets you and it slows you down and it makes you withdraw and you stop. And now who are you accountable to? You're not accountable to that improvement. But once you start to get systems in place and you hire a few people, you're accountable to the system. The system strangely takes over and it tells you you're not doing your part, Danny, even though you invented the system. Or this person's not doing their part and it's choking down the whole thing, right? So we want people on this process or in this process that are committed. that they like it. When we hire somebody, they'll be saying, listen, can you commit to the training? And this gal said the other night, she said, no. I got a guy coming in here tomorrow, morning, because I said, how trainable are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And he's a teacher. He said 6. I said, not good. Why? He said, well, I got screwed. Well, what's that got to do with trainability? Well, they trained me on something. I did what they asked me to do. I got a deal and they took it away from me. Wow. I said, that's a shitty deal, but that's got nothing to do with your trainability. I said, if you want to restore faith, I'll do you a favor. Come on over and I'll show you exactly what we do. But if you can't let go of that anger and that frustration, it's not for us because you can't commit. You can't commit. You've been burnt too much and you can't recover. Not good. I won't be for you. So it's really practical stuff that gets applied here, right? When you're establishing this culture. And look at, sometimes we let people in. We had a gal come in here. I hired her because we went to college together. She was gone after the first deal. She would have been gone even before the first deal. But it's like, how did we let her in here? Because we didn't really push on, will you commit not just to training, which was an answer, but virtually. And once she realized that she really wasn't wired to be a virtual learner, she panicked, right? So it really is all of this, like, you have to understand how your business works so that when you're committing to it, you're committing to something that you believe in. And when you bring people in and you start to create that culture, everybody's accountable to the system. There's no taking time off. There's no human discretion. You don't make up your own rules. We commit, right? So by continuously improving your processes and your systems, you can create a streamlined and more efficient organization. And again, if somebody reminds me, I'll show you my sales machine and everybody that's in it. Man, is it streamlined. Like, it is uber efficient. Everything happens like clockwork. Like, you'll see, I'm holding up this listing presentation, which is the culmination of the unique selling proposition materials. This was sitting on my desk at 5 o'clock this afternoon because the one part of my system, they book this presentation after following up. It goes to the fulfillment department over there. It gets produced, put on my desk. I am now the hot potato holder. I will be in this place. I will go give this presentation. There will be follow-up tomorrow to do something for this gal, and that will go back to client care at that point in time. Boom, 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 boom. That's what it sounds like. It's very tight, and it's the same every time. Okay, that is it for tonight. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and we'll come over here and see if we don't have some Q&A that we will tee up here. Oh, let me show you one more thing. I did promise you this, and I remembered myself. Okay, let me just have to show both screens again. So hang on. This is a mind map. Okay, this changed my life as a manager. This is the process that I use to manage. So, and by the way, if you're looking for good mind mapping software, this is called XMind, and this is an old legacy version of theirs called XMind 8. So when you see this, you can see I really walked this walk. So a little bonus for coming in here live tonight, which I appreciate. So when we're talking about our business model, right? So the sales machine, you hear me say that. I hate the word team. It got prostituted terribly for years, where the principal thought they should just go out there and they should just hire agents and miraculously they would play specialized roles. It's silly. And it's dangerous and it's not profitable. And that's exactly what this is, the profitable real estate agent plan. So when you look at all these little micro workers, this is what a streamlined business that's organized looks like, all the way from a virtual company, that ruby.com, that answers my phones. I know this is a little small on the screen, but just humor me. Showing Time coordinates all broker inbound calls from other brokerages to book showings. We have a stats manager who pulls our monthly stats for our marketplace so we can put together our newsletter. We have a designer on 99 Designs. We have a technical services guy that cleans our lists, or does, helps with our database stuff when we need it. We have a lead manager who cleans our leads to match the avatar. So if they're low-end leads, they do not make it. Even if I buy a batch and they're included, they get taken out. Okay. We have somebody who will do list scrubbing for us too on Fiverr if we have bad numbers. We have 2 telemarketers who play part-time roles that are 15 to 20 hours. Annabelle, who's not only an agent here, but she started as an apprentice. She's responsible for fulfillment, right? Jen produces these technical analyses that when I go out to a property, we do an analysis, a ratio analysis here. I won't get into that heavy, but that's there. Laura, who plays the majority of the a role to support me as the client care manager, been with me 18 years, but even in her capacity as a single mom, she puts in only 30 billable hours. And of course, she's tied to the sale. She and the telemarketers are. Photographer, description writer for write-ups, video editors for any videos I do of the property, content, social media distribution, outside sales, me, you see I'm in my own thing, showing agents to back me up, Annabelle, right? Closing coordinator, Randy, bookkeeper, Donna, my wife is the money and check manager and our closing attorney, right? So everything is a well-oiled machine based on these systematic approaches, and everything is laid out like that. Why do I like a mind map? Because if we work on our system, I'm not going to some written, list and changing it. I can move it around visually and I can watch flow, because when you're flowing your contacts through your business, they're going through these modules, right? So the first module is the marketing module. And these days, I don't have to go out and try to be creative to capture a lead. I can just buy contact information from service companies like Vulcan 7 or alltheleads.com or, whomever. I can buy contact information. Not that it's perfect, but I can buy the contact information like a raw material. That raw material is then going to be cleansed by a team that knows the avatar, which we're going to talk about, week 3. We're going to talk about specifically who I want and who I don't want on that list. Then once that list is cleansed, it's put into a dialer in our Infusionsoft /Keep, now it's called. That dial, 2 telemarketers get their divvied up portions of expireds and probates, and away they go following our script, trying to create prospects, right? So I could just go on and on and on and on. It's a checklist and it's tight. And so if we're not seeing that result, and that result is really the act of creating a prospect. And a prospect for me has a real why they want to move. And we've determined that through our scripting, or it's a failed call. On a scale of 1 to 10, we know they're going to be a 9 to 10 in their mind's eye inside the next 12 months maximum, or they get kicked out because we just don't have the capacity to babysit for longer than that. Then they fall into this follow-up program where we're not just calling them up every month saying, are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Instead, we're delivering updated solds. We're delivering updated market updates, and we're giving our opinion. And we're saying, are we still on track for such and such a time frame? Because Danny would like to get out there when the time is near. And that's what this presentation is. We've been following up for months with this gal. It's a probate. She's coming into town for the first time. We know she not only wants a stager, but she wants my advice. And so I'll be there to give my insight on the math and what to do and what not to do to get top dollar, right? So everything is a flow. So if you don't chunk it down, what happens is you get paralyzed and you take no action steps, or you get anxious and you say, I just can't do it. No, you can. And you follow this system by just getting these unique selling propositions ready. And the unique selling proposition is nothing more than a plan that says, I'm going to take you through 7 steps when I list. I'm going to take you through 6 steps when I buy to get you started in the direction of understanding what it's going to look like. We're going to look at what the money bought around you so you can see what's selling around you so we can compare it to yours and analyze it. And for the buy side, we're going to look at that. And you're going to want to know how the market's doing. So I'm going to give you a one-pager on that. But then it's me, my insights. Now you have to start to listen to me on how to properly prepare to do these things, right? Or if I go out, like I met one of our buyers today that I met through an open house before. Kathy's been following up for months. They identified now's the time. I go show them a house, and I sat there and gave them my insights. Here's where we are. You wanted an older house when you call me. This is a brand new one, good juxtaposition, same village, but take your husband down the street. Get out of the car, walk around, see if he likes that, or does he like this? We can get you in. One of the neighbors is thinking about selling and we know them. So maybe we can get you in there for juxtaposition. So again, it just starts to be that insightful moment where it's logical that you're doing business with us because we've been the only ones that are empowering you with education. So I don't have to wake up to, we need another deal today. Let's skim some cream. Maybe we get lucky like that once in a while. Buyer walked through one of our expired listings during an open house, came back again, and wrote an offer through us. So sometimes it happens, But we're not going to count on that. We're going to count on a systematic approach to acquire these prospects who then hopefully become listings, who hopefully become past clients eventually, right? So everything is streamlined, but you have to see yourself as being capable of copying me. And why can't you? Like everything I've shown you is so pedestrian tonight and so fifth grade understandable. It's just, will you take the action steps and will you believe it's applicable to you? Okay. All right. I'm at 1 minute left, but I promise you I'll take some Q&A because the first night's a little bit long, right? So I will answer anything right now. Okay. Like I promised you. Any questions that you have. If you're a guest, I appreciate you took some time with me tonight. You can, if you're a little bit on the shy side, when you get in one of these groups, feel free to chat it up, put it in the chat for me, and I'll answer whatever I can. I think Tony Robbins still has a free version of it. I'm not sure, but I think you could go to his site and I think you could do it. I think there are other, there used to be the freebies out there, Grant, but I think Tony might still give it for free. And if not, there's got to be somewhere out there where there's a digital pay for version. It just would be worth paying for. Yep. Awesome. Oh, that's a great question. I would tell you it's so efficient. It's been 45 minutes almost to the letter most of the time. Now, if I get somebody elderly or the property's big and the walkthrough is slow because I always want to walk through whatever the property is. But it's so systematic that when I get to I'll get there a little bit early and it could be a condo. Like tomorrow will be a condo, so I know the area pretty well. So I don't really have to walk around, or drive around the neighborhood slowly. I can just go park, walk there, and go into the building. But I might take my time and drag my feet in the building a little bit, look at the concierge setup, look at the parking setup, maybe, whatever, if I'm out in front of it. But it's always, thank you so much for having me over. I'd love a nickel tour of the property. Then we can sit down and chat a little bit about the system, the process. I know you've been talking to Kathy, but I'd like to ask a few questions. Good. We go through, we talk about it. I get a vibe for, what they're like. So we're back to the DISC personality test. I'm trying to learn of how do they process? How do they feel about me being there? What is this like? So I'm getting the vibe. Then I always try to sit down across from them somewhere so I can lay out the information. We can discuss it. What's most important to you in the selling of this property? Well, I don't want to come back here again, whatever. No problem. We can take care of all that. But let me just show you. The reason I walk through is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. This is the process I would be following precisely. You would know exactly where we stand at any one point in time. And that's, how we do it. But I would have asked what's most important. So if she said marketing, I said, great, let me get to the marketing. Let me talk about the differences between how we market a property or not. Still, in spite of all of that, and then I do the math, as you know, right? So I'll do the analysis. I'll talk about the net sheet, what I think she'll walk away with, what the pricing strategy could be. For the most part, it just doesn't take that long because it's so structured. If I allow myself to get pulled off because I have a connection with somebody, there's a red light that goes off in my head now. I used to kind of go off on that a little bit and, let somebody take me for a walk. Now I'm quiet. I can quiet the high eye down, Roberto. And 45 minutes to an hour, right? Yeah. I've been in there for, an hour and a half. And, if it was somebody elderly, like longer, because I could sense that if I left, I would leave them not understanding something. They were a little slower, a little bit whatever. But I would tell you it's a 45-minute deal. And I'm not a two-time guy. Like people say, well, I go out there once and then I come back and do this. Why? Why aren't you prepared to go get the listing tonight? Because you don't have a system. You haven't thought through it, right? That's why. So people, and there's a self-image. Oh, I'm a two-visit guy. I would never go in and do it on, why? Why? What story are you telling yourself? Okay. We'll go back for a second time, but I've already gotten the listing while you were waiting, right? So, and I'm being a wise guy. I'm being tongue in cheek, but yeah, you have to be able to understand that this isn't rocket science. And the more you study it, the more you can simplify it for not just them, but yourself, right? Good. What else? More questions? Cool. Michael, Joey, Amy, Sham, Alexia, Andre, thank you for all being here live. I'll call it a night now because we have been here long enough with Danny Medrick. Love you, brother. Appreciate you. You're making that decision that I made, right? When I told you I drove by that expired one night, you're making that decision. It's coming, right? It's coming. And look at how fast it's coming because you're a competitive athlete, right? That's how it happens. One day you wake up and you make a decision that I'm not going to do it that way anymore. I'm going to do it in a systematic way. My favorite saying is nobody's coming for me, right? Nobody. I have to do this. And this is what's made all the difference in the world for me. It's made coaching a lot easier for me too, because when I have you guys, I can identify exactly where you're at and why you're stuck. So I appreciate, the fact that it's coming. It's exciting to watch, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, you mean you want yeah, what do you want? The link to the call or you want the agenda or yeah, here it is right here. I'm going to put it in the chat. Yep. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, there you go. There's the Google Doc. It's in the chat. Yep. Yep. Awesome. You're welcome. Okay, gang. Yep. Oh, good. Someone else? I thought I heard something coming. Yeah, no. Okay. All right. Listen, everybody, appreciate you. Thank you for your live time. If you're here live, I really appreciate that. I know it's not easy to sit still. I try to keep these right on the hour. Like I said, a little bit over tonight, but it's a tough subject to get in quickly. So we got to speed through. Alexia, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. So, and the masterminders, see you tomorrow. See you on the other side. Thanks for being here. You're welcome. Bye, guys.